Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 115. I am Dave Bryan from Steelers Depot. I am doing the opening today. That means the great Alex Kozora is not with me today. He had a procedure done on Thursday. He is recovering from that. Things went well, but as we noted in the last previous shows, he was probably not going to be able to make it to this episode. Hopefully we'll have Alex back for the Monday show, and he can resume his normal duties when it comes to hosting and doing the intros and everything along those lines. But with Alex out today, have some familiar voices on the podcast today. I am, of course, talking about Ross McCorkle and Josh Carney. Ross, of course, co-host our other podcast on Steelers Depot, The Depot Dive. And Josh Carney has been obviously one of the lead writers on the site for several years now. So with that, good morning, guys. Happy Friday. How are you? Welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Dave. Happy Friday. Thanks for having me back on. And I hope Alex is recovering well. He is on the PUP, as Scott Brown said today.
Yeah, always a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Dave.
All right, Ross, how things going on the Depot Dive? Give a quick recap of the Depot Dive show that you and Joe Clark do, and why people should get over there and make sure to listen to that if they haven't already.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of fun lately. I think believe it or not, we're closing in on a full year of doing the show. It doesn't feel like it, but time has kind of flown by in that regard. And I think, we've kind of experimented with different things along the way. I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. And it's been a lot of fun answering, questions from viewers and stuff like that. We got a lot of those coming in on the voicemail line, and we like interacting with some of our readers and some of our listeners. So it's been a good time. We hope you guys will check it out. That usually comes out Tuesday. Typically around about 1 p.m. Eastern, or maybe a little after that, depending on how busy that day is.
All right, and Josh, update people for who might not have heard you on some previous episodes. How long you've been with Depot and all the good things that go along with that.
Yeah, I'm coming up on a decade.
Wow.
Hard to believe with Steelers Depot. But time has flown by. I think I went full-time in 2022, right around the Shrine Bowl. It's the first time I went to Vegas. And things are going really well. I think we have a great crew here. It's obviously very busy leading up to the draft. We've had an interesting offseason so far, immersing ourselves in the Aaron Rodgers world, which is quite interesting so far. But things are going good. Draft is rolling pretty closely here. And then before you know it, we'll be in training camp.
Absolutely. And I believe your youngest boy is having a 4th birthday tomorrow, right?
Yes, he is. My son Cameron turns 4. Time, like I said, time flies. I mean, he was born in Colorado. We moved home when he was 6 months old, back to Pittsburgh, and now he's 4. It's pretty crazy how this calendar flies by.
All right, we'll give him an official birthday shout out here. Happy birthday, Cameron. Enjoy your birthday. So hopefully he'll hear that real quick and enjoy that. All right, let's see. Let's get into some quick housekeeping here before we get started with some other items we have to talk about today. One thing that came about yesterday when following the NFLPA public salary cap report, a debit of $1.516 million came up unexpectedly, caught me off guard there. Those kind of things can wreck my entire week when they happen, especially when they come out of nowhere. I have finally tracked down why the Steelers lost $1.516 million in salary cap space. It was related to the Mike Williams contract of all things. And the Steelers, of course, had traded for Mike Williams last year before the trade deadline. When that contract arrived on the Steelers side, I thought, and I think a lot of people did as well too, that there was just a 1 year of money attached to it with 4 void years on the deal, and that the salary cap charge that the Steelers inherited and all the cash that they paid out would have been assigned to the 2024 season. Well, as it turns out, the Jets, when they did the deal with Mike Williams, they invoked what's called the 50% rule with that. And for me to sit here and try to describe exactly what the 50% rule is and how it all works would take me the full hour and a half, and I still would not do it well enough. In fact, I'm still trying to crunch the CBA to learn a lot more about it. But long story short, the way the Jets did that deal, the way the Steelers acquired it, way it was laid out, included in the void years there being, I don't know, 300 and I think it's $79,000 proration for the 4 additional void years that was in Mike Williams' deal. Now, the Mike Williams contract obviously voided, I think, right at the start of the new league year. That's why it's taken probably a little bit of time for this thing to finally hit the NFLPA with all the stuff going on with contracts around the league, and then finally getting around to putting it into the system. But long story short, there was proration that came due for basically signing bonus proration related to what they call the 50% rule. Once again, the Steelers don't do contracts like this normally, and when you evidently see contracts that invoke the 50% rule, to my understanding, is most of them tend to circle or be revolve around like players with void years added on to like 1 year deals and stuff like that. But I have tracked that down. It is apparently real. So the Steelers lost 1.516 million in salary cap space related to Mike Williams. So I don't know if you guys got a lot to add to that. I know we kind of collectively were reading up on some things in the Discord channel and all of ours yesterday, but yeah, not much to add there. Just along the lines of the Steelers lost $1.516 million in salary cap space. So I think we'll just leave that topic alone. I'll write about it, I think, later on today and kind of briefly lay out why it happened and where the Steelers now sit from a salary cap perspective, which obviously they're in a real good shape right now. Somewhere along the lines of 33.6 million, right along those lines in available salary cap space, which is obviously more than enough to work with and more than enough to sign a veteran quarterback, which the Steelers have yet to do. A lot of talk still about the Aaron Rodgers situation. When will he, when won't he eventually sign with this team? Josh and Ross, I think both of you would probably agree. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when and how much when it comes to Aaron Rodgers at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're at this point now where it's going to happen. It's just when, whether it's next week at this Pat McAfee show that is all the speculation, or if it's later on closer to the draft or even after. But I think it's going to happen. The throwing session with DK Metcalf was big for that layout for the Steelers. So we'll see. It's surprising it's taken this long. I mean, it is Aaron Rodgers after all. This is his first time being a true free agent, but it's still surprising, like Art Rooney II said, that it's taken this long, and hopefully we don't have to wait much longer.
Not too much to add there, just that every passing day I get a little bit more nervous. So,
nervous how? Just that something might fall through here or it might not go down or what?
Yeah, I mean, you hear the stuff about the Vikings. They've, I guess, made it clear that, well, they haven't made it clear, but they've said that J.J. McCarthy is their guy, and Is he really? I mean, they had a preseason game of him, and they supposedly like him a lot. But I don't think you can tell a whole lot from just one set of OTAs and a preseason game. So, is Aaron Rodgers holding out for that? I don't think he would do that. That's a big gamble on his part, because if he takes that gamble and the Steelers kind of move forward with a different plan, and then the Vikings don't want him, then where does that leave Aaron Rodgers? But it does make me at least a little nervous.
There are some narratives / specu reports, I guess, that Aaron Rodgers has got a handshake deal with the Steelers and just waiting to, I don't know. Maybe this will revolve around the whole Pat McAfee show coming up. I don't know what, 5 days from now. I think it happens on April the 9th there. Handshake deals might be fine. Yeah, I'm going to sign with you, but nothing is signed until it's signed. I've also kind of wondered, might Aaron Rodgers be waiting to see what happens with Geno Smith and his extension? Maybe looking at that money as kind of maybe somewhat of a template to go by there. Well, Geno Smith finally has signed that long-awaited, or is about to sign long-awaited contract extension. The reports came out yesterday. Looks like 2-year extension, $75 million base value. He has incentives that could push the total to $85.5 million. There is reportedly $66.5 million in guaranteed money, according to this. You got to be careful with that. Is that full guarantees? Is that half fully guaranteed? Is the other half injury guarantee related? We don't know yet. I think by probably later on tonight, we'll have more kind of information or specifics related to that. But if you take what's being out there reported, 2-year, $75 million extension, boys, take off your shoes. What's 75 divided by 2 if we're looking at new money here? That would be what,
37 and a half?
37.5 million
Yep.
new money average. If indeed, and I've learned to speak very carefully when it comes to these initial contract numbers and all like that, but let's assume that the new money average is 37.5 million, at least on the base side of things there. Does Aaron Rodgers deserve more than that? Should we expect Aaron Rodgers to get more than that, or should we expect Aaron Rodgers to get less than that?
I'm leaning towards more. Just if you look at the top average per year contracts on over the cap there, 37.5 is Derek Carr money. And I would think that Aaron Rodgers probably deserves a little more than Derek Carr money. Below Carr is Darnold at 33.5. And so the really, like, these veteran starters are kind of coming in at Derek Carr is kind of more or less the floor, unless you're counting, Darnold or Baker Mayfield, who signed his contract, what was that, last year? So, I'm kind of expecting it to start with a 4, but I guess maybe it could come in just a hair under 4. I don't know.
Josh?
Yeah, before Geno's news came out, I was kind of expecting 1 year, $30 million with Rodgers, but I have a hard time seeing him taking, less than Geno Smith, less than a Sam Darnold. So I hate to say it, but like Ross said, I think it's going to start with a 4, and that's going to be, somewhat painful to see for a 41-year-old quarterback. But yeah, I mean, that's the quarterback market at this point. Prices are inflated, and your average quarterback's around 37, 38 million. So Rodgers gets around 40. That makes sense.
If this is a 1-year deal with a 4, with it starting with a 4, that's quite a cap hit. The Steelers, as I just mentioned, have 36 million or so in salary cap space as it sits right now. So something would have to happen as now look, at some point during the offseason, this team's probably going to sign TJ Watt to a contract extension that will lower his cap number for 2025. They obviously have the ability, should they need to go to a couple players like Pat Freiermuth and Alex Highsmith for restructures to clear up cap space. But my kind of overview of this whole thing with the Steelers salary cap situation is that I haven't been expecting them to have to go to Freiermuth and Alex Highsmith. Is there a chance that this could end up being a 2-year deal with basically just the first year money guaranteed to see how it goes, just mainly in an effort to keep that cap hit down on Aaron Rodgers, under 35 million per se, when this thing gets done, or are we all convinced that this is still going to be a 1-year deal no matter what the money ends up being?
I think it's certainly possible that they would try to do that to kind of manipulate the cap a little bit and control, how big of a cap hit there is there. But for a guy that of his age, I would rather just see the 1-year deal. And, if it goes well and he wants to play in 2026 and that's something the Steelers might be interested in, yeah, you could have that discussion at the end of the year. But I'd rather just see the 1-year deal just tie to him for 2025. And if you have to take that big cap hit in 1 year, that's fine. I'd rather do that than have him on the books for 2. It just at his age and the position he plays and this team needing to find a long-term answer, I'd rather just keep it to 2025.
I would be open to a second year just because, if the Steelers are really going, it kind of looks like their strategy is pointing the ship towards a 2026 quarterback being top priority. And, what are you going to do in the meantime? Like, they don't necessarily love to start those guys week 1. And so you're going to need somebody in place. I guess Mason Rudolph has a 2-year deal. And so maybe he's that plan, but I don't necessarily buy that. So I could see, especially like you said, with the salary cap spreading things out, it seems feasible to me. And if that's what Aaron Rodgers wants, and maybe that's the holdup, then maybe they do give it to him.
Let's see. I think we got some news coming across. I think that Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback, is in town for a pre-draft visit today. So we'll probably get the list of 2 or 3 or 4 guys coming to Pittsburgh today. We'll talk about the guys here in a little bit that are coming in or that came in on Thursday, and maybe some significance related to that. When we're talking about the quarterback position specifically, when it relates to this year's draft, are both of you convinced that the Steelers will draft a quarterback at some point, starting almost nearly 3 weeks from now?
I'm pretty convinced. I know that there's that thought out there that they're doing all this work on the quarterbacks to gear up and be sharp for 2026. Kind of similar, if I recall, how they did leading up to the Kenny Pickett year. But they've shown some real interest in these guys. Obviously, as you mentioned, Jackson Dart coming in today on Friday for a pre-draft visit. They've shown a lot of interest in him. Quinn Ewers has had a lot of interest. Jalen Milroe. I think they need to take swings at the quarterback position. And yeah, you could say gear up and go big in 2026 for that projected quarterback class. But I'm all for taking a swing, late day 2, early day 3 at the position. You never know how it pans out. And I'm convinced as we sit here today in early April that they are going to draft a quarterback at some point at the end of the month in Green Bay.
Yeah, when I put my mock drafts together, if I try to include a quarterback in the first, I guess, 2 days or at the beginning of day 3 there, it becomes difficult to then address everything else that I want to address, like safety and receiver, corner, D-line, and running back. I guess they do need to take some swings. I don't know who that guy would be. If like a Tyler Shuck or a Jackson Dart or a Will Howard makes it to the 4th or 5th round, but all signs indicate that's not going to happen. I suppose quarterbacks can tend to get overvalued in this pre-draft kind of window here. So, if one of them does make it, I'm in favor of it, but I don't want necessarily to see a quarterback over the first 2 days. Day 3 would kind of be where I would start to shop for maybe a developmental guy.
How surprised would you be, or what would it take for the Steelers to draft a quarterback in round 1? Would it be something like Shedeur Sanders, falling down to that spot? Would they even dream of taking Jackson Dart that early at 21st overall?
As far as Sanders, I mean, yeah, in my mind, it would be one of those two. I don't know who else it would be. I guess Milroe kind of entered the conversation via Colin Cowherd, but I don't know how much I trust that. And I would be pretty disappointed if that happened, to be honest. But yeah, I think Shedeur Sanders, I guess, is intriguing just in the by way of, I mean, are the Browns going to take him? If they don't, are the Giants, I mean, the Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, they wouldn't prevent you from drafting a quarterback if you really like them. But if you're not 100% sold, it might prevent you from doing that, earlier than what you have them graded out at. It seems like people maybe don't have Shedeur Sanders as like a top 3, 5, 10 talent overall if you stack up, against the rest of the draft class. And I mean, you look at a team like the Raiders, where they just gave Geno Smith some money. I don't think they're probably looking at a first round guy that clears, I guess, some of the way for a guy like Sanders to slide. At what point do the Steelers stop Sanders' slide? Would they trade up? I don't think so. Could he make it all the way to 21? I kind of lean no. So yeah, I mean, then you're probably talking about Jackson Dart, and I don't know how sold I am on Dart overall. I always come back to the fact that he had. I mean, if you look at the Ole Miss roster, there's so many guys that are going to be drafted in the first, second, third round, and they weren't even able to make the playoffs there. And I feel like that's says something, at least something about a quarterback. They were close, but they had some tough losses there, and those were some of his worst games. So that gives me, I guess, reason for pause.
Yeah,
All right.
I think.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I think if Shedeur falls, to around 10 and starts to slip down the board a bit more, that could be a guy I see the Steelers, kind of being aggressive with, potentially moving up a bit to try and get him. Dart, if he's there at 21, I think all bets are off based off of the interest they've shown in him. And like Ross said, Milroe, if that's the pick at 21, it's a Kenny Pickett situation all over again, where you're not surprised, but you're not thrilled with it. But I think this team would be wise to just wait until 2026 to take that true first round big swing at the quarterback position. But yeah, Shedeur is the guy that if he falls, that I could certainly see that. And we'll see how heavy of a presence they have at the Colorado, what is it? The We Ain't Hard to Find showcase. Yeah. Yeah. See how heavy of a presence they have at the showcase today there in Boulder.
All right, let's see. As far as pre-draft visitors yesterday, Thursday, that I want to talk about, the Steelers had in Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden. They had in Iowa running back Caleb Johnson, FSU cornerback. Let me make sure I pronounce his name correctly. Azarie Thomas out of Florida State, one of the higher ranked cornerbacks in this year's class. And then last but not least, Gavin Bartholomew, a local visitor, obviously played his college football at Pitt. I was early on when Gavin's earlier career tape at Pitt seemed to be a lot better than what we've seen lately. Gavin, I think, is more of a late round guy. This tight end class is pretty decent overall, and obviously he will not count against the 30 total pre-draft visitors and all. But specifically, when you look at this group of 3, the other 3 obviously stick out because of kind of the pedigree and where they're projected to go. Caleb Johnson is in a large. I mean, the Steelers have brought in a lot of running backs in for pre-draft visitors, and those that have not arrived yet should be coming in at some point. Maybe we'll get another name or 2 added to that as official visitors today. But I wanted to focus more on Matthew Golden from Texas, the wide receiver coming in yesterday. This is a kid that's I think arguably one of the top 5 wide receivers in this year draft class, depending on how you want to rank them and all. You would have to think this is a player that, even if the Steelers had got back into the second round, they would have to probably have a early second round pick if he's still on the board to take him. What do you make of Matthew Golden coming in? And if the Steelers, I guess, did go that way, I think depending on how you map it out, I know some people will say there's no chance that Matthew Golden will be on the board at 21. I think there might be some scenario where that happens or would happen. And if the Steelers did take Matthew Golden at 21, what does that mean potentially maybe for George Pickens to be dealt, maybe specifically to get, a second round pick or early third round pick back within the top 100 there. That's a lot to chew on, what I just said. So, Ross, I'll open it up to you. What do you make of Matthew Golden coming in?
Yeah, I mean, it's notable I think Alex just posted something this morning about the clues, the pre-draft clues leading to a strong indication of the Steelers taking a wide receiver over the first 2 days. And I think that would be mostly linked to the fact that, Zach Azani has been on quite a few stops, which I think you guys talked about last episode or one of the recent episodes. And then lo and behold, Matthew Golden comes in for a visit. And so that definitely opens eyes in terms of, I think if you look at Bob McGinn and his, anonymous scouting series, I think Golden was the second ranked wide receiver by some of these anonymous scouts and personnel execs. And so it's McMillan and then Golden. And that would probably lead you to believe he's a first round guy, certainly not going to be there by the time they're picking in round 3. And, they'd probably have to get a pretty high second round pick to get him even in round 2. And so what does that mean? I mean, I suppose, the Pickens trade narrative probably is worth giving a closer look. I think I was kind of leaning towards it not happening just based on what was said at the owners meeting. And, especially if they get Aaron Rodgers, you'd think that part of the selling point would be, hey, you're going to have Metcalf and Pickens to work with. But if they do trade Pickens, that means, you probably do have to go ahead and get him another high receiver to work with. And Golden would be an interesting one. A little undersized, got the speed, one of the fastest guys at the combine. I think that would certainly add an element to their offense and something that a guy like Aaron Rodgers would like to work with. And even if you're waiting until next year to draft a quarterback, they're going to want to have 2 solid weapons to kind of develop alongside that quarterback, whoever they end up taking. And having DK Metcalf for 5 years on his contract, plus I guess what would be 3 years of a rookie deal at that point, for a guy like Golden would be a great situation for a new quarterback to step into. So I could see it.
Josh, Matthew Golden, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's certainly notable. It's a guy that's been connected to the Steelers, throughout this pre-draft process. And this kind of reminds me of that time in 2017 where the Steelers looked like they were in a good spot at receiver. I think they had AB, Martavis Bryant, Marcus Wheaton, and then they draft Juju Smith-Schuster. And I think that was when Martavis said that's Sammy Coates' replacement, not mine, or whatever it was. And I honestly, I think a lot of people are saying that, receiver isn't a need for the Steelers right now. And I think it certainly is. And, as Alex's story laid out, the clues are showing that they're probably going to draft one in rounds 1 or 3. And it would not shock me if they go first round with Golden, add him to that room, take one big shot at it in 2025, assuming Rodgers is the quarterback. You have a group of 5 with Metcalf, Pickens, Golden, Calvin Austin, and Roman Wilson, and really go for it there offensively. And then you can play the comp pick game with George Pickens, let him walk, and get a 3rd or 4th round pick for him and roll it that way. That would be, in my opinion, that would be kind of a waste of an asset there in the first round on a receiver, where you could get a defensive lineman that might have more of an impact. But Golden is a very good player. He can play inside, he can play outside. He brings that explosive element, and you can have him cost controlled opposite Metcalf for 3 more years, like Ross laid out. Zach Kozora has shown some interest there in Golden, so I'm not surprised he came in for a pre-draft visit, and I would not be surprised if he's picked at 21 if he's on the board. I know that there's been some speculation he could go 12 to Dallas and pair him with CD Lamb down there, but he is a very good player who had a heck of a career at Texas after a really strong career at Houston. He tested off the charts, and he checks a lot of boxes that the Steelers look for. So not surprised at all, and I do think the interest is real, and he could be that guy that hears his name called at 21.
If you do spend draft capital, first round pick on a wide receiver, you going to get that guy on the field and position. When it comes to positions in today's NFL and ease of guys probably trying to get on the field for significant playing time, wide receiver, seems to be one of those positions that you could get that done. Long story short, what I'm getting at here is, you got an offense that, unless you're going to change and start running a lot of 11 personnel and getting Arthur Smith to shake things up a little bit more. It feels like George Pickens might be out the door.
Certainly
via trade.
Yeah, the one concern I have is the comment that Omar Khan made earlier in the week at the owners' meetings, where he said, the Metcalf trade had nothing to do with Pickens. You need more than one receiver. I wonder if they're trying to take a hard pivot from what they did last year and, kind of tried to hold the receiver room together with duct tape and all that. And now they're just going to overload it. And that's my concern, is where they have all these pieces and they don't really know what to do with it. But yeah, it's certainly understandable to get to that point where if they draft Golden, that that Friday morning we're preparing for a George Pickens trade to get back into the second round or to add a third rounder. It's certainly plausible.
Ross, you got any final thoughts on? Look, I'm still in the camp of thinking this team will draft a wide receiver. I think this class is kind of top heavy, though, and I do wonder if they didn't draft one in, let's say, the first round. If they might wait and try to get more of a value pick from who is it, Dante, the Tennessee kid, what's his last name?
Oh, Dante Thornton.
Yeah, Thornton, or the other old Antoine Wells Jr., I think, is the other Ole Miss kid. And Alex and I talked about both those guys. But Alex makes a great point, with the Blues Clues, as he, as him and I talked about, and he wrote about, I think this morning up on the site, of why we should maybe expect the Steelers to draft a wide receiver in the first 2 days here. Another concern, I guess, too, is if you went wide receiver in round 1, defensive line remains a big hole on this roster right now, and I'm needing a little bit more prodding of why defensive line won't be the pick in round 1, especially when you don't have a round 2 pick right now. What would be left over at let's say round 3 or even in round 2 if you went, a position, anything other than defensive line in round 1?
Yeah, I'm absolutely still leaning towards defensive line round 1. You look at last year's draft and you had guys like Mason Smith going way higher than anybody expected, and that's because there weren't any of those kind of prototypical defensive linemen last year. And this year is really an anomaly, and you don't know. I certainly have no idea what next year has in store at the position. I haven't looked that far ahead, but it's probably not going to be this rich. And so if you don't get one this year, what are you doing? They didn't address it in free agency, and I think that kind of, in my head, solidified that defensive line would be the first round pick. And yeah, with no second round pick, who are you going to get in the third round that's going to be kind of a cornerstone of the future of the defensive line? I guess it's possible, for sure. There are going to be guys. But any that I'm in love with, I don't know if those kinds of guys are going to make it to the third round. It seems like opinions are all over the place on Darius Alexander, so maybe he's a guy that could be had in the third round. I think a lot of people earlier in the process, after the Senior Bowl and stuff, we're kind of thinking he'd be more of like a early day 2 kind of guy, and now opinions seem to be a little bit more wide on him. So maybe he could be the target, but I really struggle to put together a competitive defensive line for this year, and certainly you're getting into real trouble next year. And whenever Cam Hayward decides to hang him up, if you don't get one of those premier guys this year.
What's the temperature on a guy? First and foremost, where are our pre-draft visitors for defensive linemen at?
That's a
So
great
far
question.
we have,
Is it Farmer, I think?
we have Farmer, Black, and JJ Peegs, or however you say that.
Pegues, yeah, from
Pegues.
Ole Miss. So you're looking at, I think Farmer and Pegues are kind of in the same range, that 3 or 4, and then Ross, you saw Black up close and in person. Is he kind of like a late day 3 guy coming out of Iowa?
That's the sense I get. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy that, he weighed in at like 330 something. I think he was listed at like 315, 317, and he came to the Senior Bowl at like 330. He has 35-inch arms. He, certainly could kind of have that flexibility to play inside and outside on the defensive line there. But, probably would need to shed at least, 10 of those pounds that he seems to have gained over the last couple of years. He'd be more of a project, but he, at the Senior Bowl, he showed some stuff. I mean, he was a little bit rough in the one-on-ones, but when it came to the team sessions, he seemed to have a pretty strong anchor to him, and wasn't getting pushed back off the line of scrimmage and stuff like that. And so it certainly seems like he could be a guy they'd target in like the, 6th, 7th range.
Surely we're going to see Kenneth Grant and Derek Harmon come in the door, right?
I sure hope so. I mean, if not, based on history, you could probably scratch them off the list as a potential first-round pick. But I hope that they both come through the door there as a pre-draft visit. I hope Walter Nolan from Ole Miss comes in as well. Like Ross said, this is a very, very good defensive line class, and it would be a bit disappointing to see them, kind of pass on that in the first round and miss out on those premier guys, and hope that, someone that fits the scheme and someone that you've done the work on and that you'll feel comfortable about is there at 83 in the 3rd round.
Is there a chance Derek Harmon falls into the 2nd round? I mean, surely he wouldn't make it out of the 2nd round if he did. And the Steelers obviously right now don't have a 2nd round draft pick. Is there a possibility he falls into maybe the top of the 2nd round? The Steelers, I don't know, by virtue of, let's say they trade George Pickens and get back into the 2nd round, or some combination of something to get a early 2nd round pick. Is that plausible?
I think it's plausible. I'd be surprised if Harmon falls out of that 1st round at this point. I know that early in the pre-draft process, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah had him out of his I think it was his 1st or 2nd mock draft, out of the top 32 there. But just based off the way he tested and, his tape at Oregon this past year, I'd be surprised. I think the guy that could fall out of that 1st round, that would be intriguing to potentially, move Pickens and find a way to get it early into that 2nd round, is Walter Nolan. I know obviously that they've, as we talked about earlier with Dart, they've paid a lot of attention to Ole Miss. I think that's the guy that could fall out of the 1st round, that if we're sitting there Friday morning and, there's buzz that the Steelers are trying to move up, it could be for that guy.
All right. Is there any chance that they think that they like their defensive line room a lot more than at least our group of guys do?
I just come back to the long-term stuff. Like maybe they like Quali more than we think for this year, or Logan Lee, like, are we banking on him? I guess like the question is who are we banking on long term? And I kind of struggle to come up with a solid answer there. And so I would struggle to think that they're sold on the long term. It seems like they're very high on Benton, and I think they should be. But then what? So I just really think it has to be a 1st round guy, and if not, I mean, maybe one of these Texas guys could be interesting, like Alfred Collins. I think is intriguing to me, or especially with Khan saying that they really think that Benton can play anywhere along the defensive line. I don't think that point's being talked about quite enough in terms of, they could get maybe one of these guys that fits more in the middle and not necessarily be looking for just like a base end type, because there aren't as many of those that really fit. A lot of those kind of base end types like Jordan Birch or Jared Ivey, they came in weighing like way too light at the combine. And, some of those guys do lose weight leading up to that type of event to have a good 40 time and whatnot. But, you don't want to be in a situation where you have another DeMarvin Leal. And I guess, is that the guy that they're excited about? Because I don't know how you could be at this point.
Right.
That would be tough if they are banking on DeMarvin Leal. But I just go back to what they've done, in the last few years and how Omar Khan and Andy Weidel have talked about, the big guys in the trenches, and they invested heavily in the offensive line in recent years, both in free agency and the draft. They brought in those, bodies in Equale and Asezi Otomewu, excuse me. That was difficult to get out. And then Isaiah Loudermilk. So they have the pieces there to protect themselves. So if they don't go first round, I sure hope they double dip in rounds 3 through 7. But just based on the philosophy of team building and what Khan and Weidel have talked about, I sure hope that they put an emphasis on it. And I don't know how you could look at this defensive line group, especially how they closed the year and how they struggled to stop the run in division play, and feel good about it. So we'll see. I know that they seem pretty high on Daniel Equale, but that can't be your answer along the defensive line opposite Cameron Hayward.
Let's see here. With all these running backs coming in, I think both of you would probably agree. We expect this team to draft a running back at some point this year. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa was in the door yesterday. Thoughts on him, and specifically, could this be the leader in the clubhouse maybe right now as we sit here as potential running back the Steelers draft?
When they had their second round pick, I thought he was a perfect fit at 52 overall. And then obviously that went to Seattle for DK Metcalf. I think he fits scheme wise with Arthur Smith, kind of that zone runner. He's an upright runner. He's powerful. I know that he didn't test all that great, but he has a knack for turning those 10-yard runs into those explosive plays, something that they haven't had a ton of in recent years. But he's kind of that big, powerful running back. He's durable. I know he had just the 1 year starting at Iowa, but he profiles as a good fit for the Steelers. I'm just concerned that he won't be there in that third round at number 83 overall. Because, like I said, at 52, that was a guy that felt good in recent mock drafts of like, okay, there's your answer at running back to pair him with Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. But now that pick is gone, I just can't see it unless he falls. And who knows, he could. I know that Maurice Jones-Drew had him as his number 14 or 15 running back in the class, which was rather surprising yesterday when those rankings dropped on NFL.com. But his tape in 2024 at Iowa is very good, and he profiles as a really good fit for Arthur Smith. So I'm not surprised that they brought him in.
Ross, your thoughts on Caleb Johnson?
Yeah, just based on kind of along the lines of what Josh was saying, based on where he's projected to go, I have a hard time seeing how he, ends up fitting into the draft plans there. Third round, I suppose if he falls there, it would make some sense. I kind of, in terms of the big body guys or the bigger guys that the Steelers traditionally like to have, I think there's plenty of those guys that you can get, beyond the third round, even maybe into the fourth round, like a Damian Martinez out of Miami is somebody who I've been on, pretty much the whole process. He's a big guy. He has, excellent movement skills. His lateral agility doesn't make sense for how big he is and how strong he is as a runner. I think he's a guy they could definitely be interested in. They haven't necessarily shown interest in him yet. I'm kind of anxious to see if they will. But yeah, Caleb, I think a lot of people have kind of had him pegged as somebody the Steelers would be interested in throughout the process. And so it's no surprise at all that they brought him in.
All right, as far as running backs go, not named Ashton Genty or Omarion Hampton, who I think most consensus have as the top two running backs in this year's draft class. Who is each of your favorite running back for the Steelers in this year's draft class?
I guess I just kind of cheated ahead on that one, but I think Martinez is near the top of the list for me. If you're going for that big body guy, I guess there's some question of whether they would do that. I think Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell are both kind of similar height. I don't want to say small guys because they definitely have some bulk to them, but the Steelers have traditionally liked to have a 220-pounder, maybe on the taller end of things. And they don't have that right now. And so if you are looking at a bigger guy, I think Damian Martinez can make some sense. Certainly Caleb Johnson. But if you're looking for a smaller guy, I'll throw another name out there. I think Virginia Tech's Bashal Tutin is very intriguing to me. I think he was the fastest running back of the group. Ran like a 4.32 or something in that range, if I'm not mistaken. And he runs with some power. He's not just a, Dree Archer type of small scat back. He has legitimate power, even though he would be, the Steelers would have probably the smallest running back room in the NFL if they brought him in. But I think going back to the beginning of this process, Jerry Dulac said the Steelers are looking for a running back that can get around the edge. And I don't know if Kenneth Gainwell was necessarily the guy that is going to be, they're going to be banking on to do that. And so if he did hear something inside the building and that is what they're after, Bashal Tutin might make a ton of sense.
When it go ahead, Josh.
No, I look at Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State. Obviously, we've seen the clip of him chatting it up with Mike Tomlin at the pro day. That's a guy that, he's a well-built running back. He's powerful. He's got some speed to him. He's not going to hit the home run all the time, but he can do everything asked, in that backfield. Another guy I keep coming back to is Ollie Gordon II. I know Ross, I believe, did the scouting report on him. I know 2024 was a down year for him, but he's that big physical running back that they obviously just had in Najee Harris and let him go. And so maybe there's not a true fit there, but they've shown a lot of interest in Ollie Gordon. And another guy I come back to, I know he didn't have the greatest testing numbers, but the tape is very good, is Devin Neal from Kansas. He's got that multi-sport background. He's a good runner. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. He was an explosive player at Kansas, even while running a 4.58 40. So that's a guy that, I kind of have circled there, late day 2, early day 3 as a potential fit. And we'd be remiss not to mention Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. Again, kind of like Ollie Gordon, that big physical running back, but Scatabo has some explosiveness to him that Gordon doesn't. So that's a name that, I kind of have on the radar there as kind of that 3rd, 4th round guy that could address the running back need for the Steelers.
If you were to take a swing at it right now, would the Steelers draft a running back or a wide receiver first in this year's draft?
I'll say receiver. I cannot see them making that same mistake of drafting a running back in the 1st round, especially after.
I'm not necessarily the first, but just
before.
Yeah, just which position comes first?
I'll still say receiver. I think that they can get good value at running back later on in the draft.
Ross?
Yeah, I think I agree with Josh there. I think there's, 11, 12, 13 starting quality running backs. And far less in terms of receivers. And so I would lean receiver first.
I'm not planting my flag on firmly in the hill. I'm starting to dig the hole a little bit for myself. But I don't know. Something tells me this team's going to go running back before they're going to go wide receiver. That maybe they're going to wait until day 3 to get that wide receiver. Now, obviously, look, if they trade George Pickens, if you can get like we had a conversation earlier in the show, if Golden's there at 21 and Golden they're comfortable with Golden. Golden's their guy. I could definitely see maybe them going that route and then potentially maybe trading George Pickens. They have had both the Iowa State kids, I think, in the door, and what Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Both those guys, I think, be hard pressed to make it out of the first round, and if they did, they probably not going to stay on the board through the second round. It opens up, and Alex and I kind of had this conversation the other day. Career production in college, slot versus out wide. Does it matter when it comes to what the Steelers might be interested in as far as flavor of wide receiver? Especially on the heels of drafting a guy like Roman Wilson last year. And that's a guy that I think all of us he could be, look, we got to see more than 5 snaps of him, obviously, at this point. That's all he's played right now, but he still kind of projects more of a lot more as an inside slot guy than he does outside. But does the flavor slot versus wide matter with what the Steelers are looking for here?
I think it matters to an extent. I mean, I'm still very intrigued to see what Roman Wilson can do this year and maybe how that factors into their plans at wide receiver. But I think the Steelers have been missing, like, ever since Deontay Johnson was hurt and now, of course, off the roster. They've missed that guy who can consistently get open, gets open quick, gets good separation. They haven't really had that. George Pickens wasn't that guy. Calvin Austin III, I guess, made some strides last year, but I think they need a guy on the outside who can do some of that. And so I'm not against some of these guys like Agbuka or Burden or Jalen Noel. These guys who can kind of play inside or outside, similar to Roman Wilson. I think that's valuable. I think they want to be able to move their guys around and kind of play the mismatch game. So I think I think Roman Wilson, kind of in that mold last year, is not a bad thing and shouldn't be frowned upon if they go for a guy like a Noel or an Agbuka.
Josh?
Yeah, I think it really just depends on the receiver, we're talking about. If it's Igbuka, I think he can play inside and outside. I think primarily his snaps were all in the slot at Ohio State, but that's a guy that's shown when he's outside, he can get off the line, he can beat press coverage. Guy like Burden, maybe not. Jalen Noel, he can play inside and outside. I think he's got the quickness and the route running ability. But with the way, like Ross said, with the way this team wants to move its receivers around, wants to, look for mismatches, wants to put them in favorable matchups, I don't find myself all that concerned with, oh, this is a slot receiver or oh, this is a boundary guy. I just want talent in that room and figure it out from there. Because there are ways to get around maybe some of the weaknesses with beating press coverage and stuff like that with formations. So I'm excited about Roman Wilson this year. I think obviously Calvin Austin has shown at times that he can make some plays on the outside as well. I think if I'm recalling correctly, that catch down the sideline against the Eagles was from the boundary. So they have the guys that can do it and can move around. And I think that's the most important, is having that versatility rather than being, an outside guy compared to a slot guy. So it doesn't concern me as much, but I certainly understand the argument aspect of that from the other side.
I know your team Egbuka, but pulling some data off of Football Insights, who pulls their data from PFF and college football CFBD and also using the Faster program. They have career production for Egbuka, 73% of it coming out of the slot, 25% of it out wide, an average depth of target of 9.1. Jalen Noel's almost right there with him, 73% career production out of the slot in college, 24% out wide, and a average depth of target of 8.3. So you got both these guys under 10, where their A dot comes from. Both of them are good at yards after the catch guys and all like that. But I mean, both these guys are coming out of college predominantly kind of as second fiddle kind of guys, if you will, and more slot production. So are both those guys slam dunk first round guys? I don't think they are.
No, I don't think so.
Personally.
I don't think so. I think Igbokwe, if he gets past Pittsburgh at 21 and Green Bay at 23, I could see him falling out of the first. I actually have Noel as kind of late day 2, early day 3. I have him in the 3rd round in my mock to Pittsburgh this morning. I think that's a guy that a little undersized, and as you mentioned, was kind of that second fiddle to Jaden Higgins in this receiver class might fall. But I certainly do not think they are both slam dunk first rounders. And I think based on that data you just cited there, I think it's pretty clear. I have a type at receiver now, Dave. So thank you.
Ross, on those two, Igbokwe and Noel, both mainly getting production out of the slot in college.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see just my projection is 2 receivers in the first round, and that would be kind of rare for the last several drafts. And I mean, there's only been 1 draft in the last long time of only having 1 receiver in the first round, and that wouldn't completely shock me either, to be honest. I'm not very high on this receiving group in general, but I do think McMillan and Golden are likely to go in the first, and beyond that, I would not be surprised at all if some of these guys slide into the second and maybe even third. If a guy like Jalen Noel is there in the third, then I am fully on board. I would love that pick. I love that pick in Josh's mock, and I think another guy that we haven't really touched on here that should definitely be on everybody's radar is Trey Harris. I think wasn't Azani at that pro day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I think they had a formal at the combine too. So
yes, so there's been some clues along the way. The only thing missing right now is a pre-draft visit, and I think he's one of those guys who should probably be viewed as, I don't know, top 6, 7 guy in this class, in my opinion. And so he's someone I would be very interested in seeing, maybe a 3rd round guy for the Steelers.
What are your thoughts on Alec Manor out of Stanford? I think I dove deep into his tape recently, and I think he might be I don't know where you guys think of Travis Hunter and all this. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how NFL teams think of him, if it's wide receiver more or cornerback more. I think organizations probably split on that. Probably a few of them willing to take him, see if he can play both ways a little bit. But I'm thinking that Alec might be first round, might be the second best true wide receiver in this class.
He tested very well for his size. He's, very sturdy and kind of got an NFL ready body. And I mean, yeah, like you just mentioned with Travis Hunter, I mean, he torched him. His best game in college was a 13 reception, 294 yard, 3 touchdown performance, almost entirely matched up against Travis Hunter. That was in 2023. So, not this past season. And, his season this past year was okay, not great. But Stanford didn't really have a tremendous team or certainly not a great quarterback. And so, yeah, I think my initial mock draft had him to the Steelers in the 2nd round, but I struggle to see a way or a path to kind of getting him at this point for the Steelers. I think first round would be maybe a little rich for my taste, and I don't think he'll be there in the 3rd. But he's one of my favorites for sure.
Josh, where do you come in on Alec?
Yeah, coming out of the season, he was my favorite receiver in this class, and then obviously I kind of got onto the Emeka Igbokwe train there. But I think he's the best pure receiver in this class, kind of like what you mentioned, Dave. I think it's up to personal preference when it comes to McMillan at Arizona or Ayoman or at Stanford. So he can do it all. I think if I'm remembering the snap counts correctly, he's a guy that plays primarily outside, and there's a question if he can kick inside. He's shown it at times, but good route runner, good contested catch guy, tested really well, good blocker. he's a guy that like Ross said, I think first round would be a little too rich for me. But if there's a receiver that they could find a way to get into the second round to get that would fit this scheme and kind of this culture in Pittsburgh, he's a guy that would be at the top of the board. So yeah, his tape is quite good, and that matchup against Travis Hunter, I think, turned everybody on in the country to him. And he had the highlight reel catch against Syracuse this past year. I think that was a Thursday night game to beat them on the road. So he is a very good receiver that I think had some good buzz coming out of the year and is kind of tapered off a bit, but the tape does not lie on him. He is a very good player.
86% of his snaps out wide, college production. I think only 2 years there. He did average, I think, yards per game 77.2, which is up there as far as the wide receivers in this year's draft class goes. Tet McMillan 92.3, I think, leads them all as far as that goes. His when you talk about Alec and his average depth of target, 14.2 yards. That's down the field there. And he did it with not a great quarterback and not much help around him overall. Now, albeit did play, probably a little bit lighter competition as far as that goes, facing that. But it just I don't know. I really like Alex tape, and I can I see him falling out of the first round? Yeah. Can I see him falling out of the second? Absolutely not. Where do both of you guys come in on there's a lot of you're either team Luther Burden or you're not. Where you come in on Luther Burden?
I come in right on the fence with him. I know that's kind of hedging, but I think he's a good player. I just worry about how often they had to scheme up touches for him. And it felt like when I was watching Brady Cook tape, the quarterback in Missouri, a lot of Burden's touches were around the line of scrimmage. I don't know how that matches up with the stats. I don't have that directly in front of me. He's an explosive player, don't get me wrong, but it just felt like that was a guy that they had to scheme up a lot of touches for on screens and swing routes, around the line of scrimmage. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence with him. I think in the right scheme, the right system, he'd be a nice piece. But as far as a guy that's going to be a complete receiver, he's going to challenge you down the field, he's going to do stuff after the catch. I don't see that with him overall. So I'm kind of right on the fence as far as the Steelers' perspective. I don't think it's a fit for him.
They aren't the exact same type of player, but as you were just saying, with kind of scheming him to get touches and whatnot, he kind of reminds me of last year's Malachi Corley in that
that's
sense.
Good. That's good.
Just a lot of kind of scheme to get open, and Corley didn't really have a great first year there in New York. I think he could kind of develop, and Corley's maybe a little bit bigger, Burden's a little bit more explosive. But yeah, I do worry about those guys that kind of got schemed a lot. But if Burden was there in the third round, which I don't think he will be, he's another guy I could definitely see the Steelers pulling the trigger on. But he's another guy who I just don't really see a path to coming to Pittsburgh just because of not having that second round pick.
All right. Let's see. Where shall we move? We're still waiting to see what other pre-draft visitors came in today. Dulac now finally reporting that Jackson Dart is top 30 among the top 30 visitors in today. So we're waiting to see who else came in today. Thoughts on Thomas, the cornerback out of FSU that was in?
Yeah, long physical cornerback, fits the mold that the Steelers have kind of been looking at in years past with Joey Porter Jr. and Corey Trice. I just worry about the long speed with him. I think his testing was a concern there. But again, the Steelers are showing a lot of interest. You have the pre-draft visit box checked. Ike Taylor was putting him through position drills at the Florida State Pro Day there on March 21st. I think he had, based on some of the clips I saw and some of the write-ups on the site that I read from the Senior Bowl, he had a really good week down there in one-on-one matchups. So he fits the mold of what the Steelers are looking for, and he's a guy that's generated a lot of buzz here early on. I just don't know that, with Slay in for a year and Brandon Eccles in as well, that corner is truly that big of a need right now for the Steelers. I wouldn't be upset if Thomas is that pick at 21 in the first round. I worry about how he would see the field right away and what his role would be. So yeah, play style wise though, length, physicality, it all matches.
Is he first round material though?
I think so. I think so. Honestly, he's starting to generate quite a bit more buzz. If I were if I were picking, I'd probably wait until day 2 in that early second round range, kind of like Porter was. But I have seen a lot of stuff come out in recent weeks from a lot of the big name draft guys talking about Azariah Thomas as a first round pick.
Ross, I think you saw him right at the Senior Bowl.
Yep. I mean, what his brother plays over there in Dallas, Wanye Thomas. So that he's got some of that NFL kind of bloodline stuff that the Steelers like. The other thing is he only has 2 interceptions in 37 games played. I don't know how crazy I am about that. I think the Steelers kind of already have that guy on the roster, and it would be nice if they could have somebody with maybe slightly better ball skills to their name, or at least a track record of that. And Thomas maybe doesn't fit that description, but yeah, like Josh says, he has the height, weight, maybe not speed that the Steelers look for, and I don't know if I view him as a first round lock kind of guy, but I'm trying to think which other corners I would necessarily rank above him. I don't know how many corners are going to go in the first round, to be honest. But
Will Johnson's going right, and whatever you view
Yeah.
Travis Hunter is, and then Jedi Barron out of Texas, I think are predominantly the 3 that many I think are expecting to come off the board, within, let's say, the top 40 picks.
Yeah, and I see kind of Thomas with I don't know, Trey Amos and Darian Porter kind of being that next tier. So I'm thinking more of a second round for Thomas for me. I kind of lean towards the Steelers maybe not having so much of the same thing in their room with the Trice and the Porter, and I get they have a type, but I think it's valuable to have some diversity so that you can match up against different skill sets better. And I think we saw that when Dante Jackson was healthy last year. It was effective, and he was kind of a ball hawk until his back and whatever else was nagging him kind of got in the way. And so I would like, if they do bring in a corner, to maybe look at slightly, maybe not just going the same mold that they've been doing over and over again.
All of us will be surprised they draft a corner in the first round unless a guy like Will Johnson or Barron fell, right?
Yeah, I think so. And even then, it's just like that leaves you in a very tough spot with some of the needs, and I don't view corner as a huge need. But yeah, those guys are good enough to where you maybe ignore that, and the Steelers maybe haven't had the luxury of doing that in recent years. But I could see it, I guess.
All right,
Yeah,
go ahead, Josh.
no, just like I said, I think with Thomas it wouldn't surprise me just based off the interest they've shown and the type of cornerback they like. But yeah, like Ross said, if they did that or Will Johnson, you're drafting a position that's not a need, and that kid might not play much until 2026. So that would be hard to come to grips with based off of everything that we've talked about so far.
All right, Josh, you had mock draft version 3.0 went up on the site this morning. First round, you have Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. I think it's kind of obvious why you went that way, but tell us why and who, what, when, where.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear at this point that there is a certain level of interest in Kenneth Grant. Obviously, Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan missed the Michigan Pro Day for the Aaron Rodgers visit, but Terrell Austin was there, and like we talked about earlier with the defensive line group, hopefully Grant is one of those names that comes in for a pre-draft visit here. But I go back to Art Rooney II said that they wanted to get some run stoppers in, and Kenneth Grant is a big body. I think 6'0", 331 is what he measured in at the combine. Good run defense on tape. I know that Todd McShay, I wrote earlier in the week, has some concerns about his motor, but Cameron Hayward just last week called Kenneth Grant an alien. So there's there's certainly a fit there. They do like their Michigan men, as we know, and I think he would boost the defensive line overall. I don't think he's a day one starter. I think he'd play behind Ekwale there early on, but that's a guy that I think could move around and allow Keanu Benton some versatility there as well. So that's a guy that I've kind of had my eye on since the combine, and finally felt comfortable enough to put him in first at 21st overall.
I think a lot of people would be ecstatic if that ended up going that way. I think I would be one of those ecstatic people if Kenneth Grant fell to him and that was the selection at 21st overall. All right, no second round pick in your mock draft. It's hard to kind of predict trades and that kind of stuff. So you went with what they have as picks, round 3, 83rd overall. You've got Jalen Noel out of Iowa State following all the way down there.
I do, yeah, and we kind of talked about him. Just he had some great testing. He was an explosive playmaker there at Iowa State, especially after the catch. And this isn't just for 2025. It's looking beyond too. And with George Pickens in a 1-year, contract year here, and I don't think that they'd give him a second contract. I think receiver is a bigger need than some people might be comfortable saying right now. So they are going to have him in for a pre-draft visit. I know that was reported that he hasn't come in yet officially based on the tracker, but that's a guy that I think could really fit in this offense and give that receiver room some explosive playmaking.
All right, you had to wait. Let's see, round 4 next. Oh, Quinn,
Yeah.
Quinn,
Yep.
all right.
This is where this draft kind of falls off for a lot of people. And I go back to what we talked about earlier. I do think that this team needs to take some swings at quarterback, and I feel like they're going to. And I've had Ewers here at this spot in my last 2 mocks. They've shown some interest in him. They had a formal meeting at the Combine. They were at his pro day, though I think it was a dinner. They weren't actually at the pro day. But he's a guy that played through a torn, I believe it was a torn oblique muscle last year, which affected some of his, downfield passing, but he still had a solid year. He's a guy that is, former highly rated recruit coming out of high school. Just a guy that spins the ball well. He brings some mobility and, like I mentioned, that toughness. And that's kind of a guy I want to take a shot on there in the mid rounds. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea. It might be a waste, but I am all for taking swings on the quarterback position.
I try not to look at the comments in these mock drafts and all.
I do. A lot of people are upset.
I would imagine this is the pick that gets the most pushback.
Yes.
In this one. All right. Round 5, 156th overall. Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State.
Yep, talked about him earlier. That kind of that big bruising running back that they have liked in the past. They've shown interest here so far. He has a pre-draft visit set with the franchise. He had a formal meeting at the Combine. So 6'0", 226. Didn't have a great 2024. Didn't test all that well with a 4.6, 140. But his 2023 tape at Oklahoma State, wow. I mean, there was buzz about him being a first-round running back this year, and then obviously things fell off. But I just think he fits the mold, and they have their lightning and Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, I think, and they kind of need that thunder or that hammer, and I think that's Gordon.
Just to interject on Gordon real quick, I think the biggest question mark and kind of frustrating point with him and watching his tape was at his size, there's no excuse not to be a good in pass protection, or at least be able to hold up there. And this guy is just routinely only dives at ankles. This guy only goes for the cut. And he even talked about it when I interviewed him at the Senior Bowl. He says, "Oh yeah, I'm always trying to, basically take them off their feet and stuff." And he's always trying to, I think he said, flip them over onto their head. And it's like, I don't understand it. You're big enough to kind of hold up against these guys coming up the middle. And that to me is a little concerning. Is he shying away from the contact? I don't know. But after hearing that, he did kind of take a mini hit in my mind.
Yeah, no, that's certainly fair, but maybe getting in a room with Jalen Warren and being challenged daily could change that, because I don't think just based off watching it and obviously reading your report and, kind of following Oklahoma State in the last few years, I don't think he was really pushed in that running back room. So maybe that was you can get by with this type of technique here in pass protection, but that won't fly in Pittsburgh. So who knows? Maybe being around Warren and that could push him in the right direction there. But it's certainly a fair point, Ross.
Ross, how did he? I'm trying to roll back, trying to remember the drills at the Senior Bowl on the all 22 and all. Did they? Obviously they had him in some pass protection drills. Do you remember how he fared in those?
I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Jeffrey Bossa, maybe just absolutely planted him on his butt like twice in a row at one point. So I think he's still very much a work in progress with his pass protection. And he was open about it. He's like, yeah, I need to not, dive at ankles anymore. I need to hold up and just do it straight up. And so I guess he knows, but it's not something that's natural to him because he didn't get a lot of reps actually doing it. I watched 5 games and I was only able to find like one rep where he actually tried to take someone, standing up on his feet and not try and cut ankles. And so I don't know who coached him or what kind of instincts or what. I mean, it was troubling.
All right, Josh, round 6, you double dipped the chip. Zeke Biggers, defensive lineman out of Georgia Tech. I have not watched him yet. I will add him to my list to try to get through these next 3 weeks. Tell me about Zeke Biggers.
Yeah, he's a guy that kind of got on my radar there at the Shrine Bowl, showed up just a few weeks removed from an emergency appendectomy. He was a lot slimmer than he was on tape throughout the year, and he looked quite good. So I kind of jotted him down, wanted to come back to him. He's kind of a bland player. He's a good fundamental run defender, but you're not going to get much at all from him as a pass rusher. But playing the run, being that early down guy, a guy that can, move up and down the line of scrimmage from, 0 tech to 5 tech throughout his time at Georgia Tech. I just think that's a guy that makes sense at his size to kind of bring in as that developmental depth piece. And in my scouting report on him, I think last week I compared him to, Daniel McCullers. Not as heavy, but that big presence in the middle that just is fundamentally sound, can hold up against the run. But he's not going to offer you anything as a pass rusher, and I'm okay with that because this team needs to shore up run defense in the trenches.
All right, and finally to close this thing out in round 7, 229th overall, R.J. Mickens, safety out of Clemson.
Yeah, another guy that was at the Shrine Bowl. He is the son of former NFL defensive back Ray Mickens with the Jets, so checks that NFL bloodlines there. But you want to talk about experience. This guy comes out of Clemson, 60 career games, over 3,000 career snaps. Good size at 6 foot, 199 pounds, can play deep safety, can play in the box. He's a good downhill run defender. Doesn't have the, the production that you would like, over the years. He does have 7 interceptions, but that was early on in his career. So just a guy that, this team has shown a lot of interest in safety. Throughout this pre-draft process. It's something Alex covered 2-3 weeks ago. But they were at the Clemson Pro Day. They had the big contingent there. He has the NFL bloodlines and a ton of experience, and I think you could add him to that safety room under new position coach Gerald Alexander and give him an experienced college player to try and mold. So it checks that box there.
All right, Josh, you get one do-over for one pick in your mock draft. What are you doing over here?
I'd probably take out the Ewers pick, and I'm not sure where I'd go. Maybe that's an area I'd dress cornerback, or maybe grab a depth offensive lineman there. They do need some help at tackle here. But yeah, I mean, that's the Ewers pick is the one where I'm like, okay, I can see this happening. I personally don't want them to do that with Ewers, but if I had to do over, I would take the Ewers pick out there and probably grab that depth offensive tackle.
All right, Ross, tear him up. Where did he go wrong here? Where did he go right?
I mean, I love the first pick. I love the third pick. I have questions if, Noel's going to be there in the third round, but if he is, I think both of those 2 picks are, very strong for the Steelers. Quinn Ewers is where things fall apart a little bit for me. I think maybe if you'd swap the Gordon and the Ewers, people wouldn't get quite as mad there. I think you could get away with doing that. But yeah, Ewers, I mean, it is tough because every time I do the, my own mocks, I look and I'm like, okay, this is around the round 4 is kind of where I like which quarterback could I see them taking. And then I start to go down the list and I'm like, I don't know if this guy's going to be there. And so you do kind of land on like Ewers or McCord or, it starts to get pretty far down the list there. And so I kind of tend to end up on quarterback in like the more of like a 5th round range. And, Ewers maybe there could make some sense. Ollie Gordon, like I said, if you're getting the 2023 version of him, great. I do have concerns. He also had a DUI, I think, last year, and so maybe some immaturity or character kind of things that could be maybe a potential concern there. You don't want to knock somebody too much for a mistake like that, but it is worth noting. And so if you're looking at round 5 for running backs and you want a bigger body, I think I said it earlier, Damian Martinez has been my guy in that spot. I think he is just a better prospect than Gordon, a little bit more well-rounded. And I have concerns with Gordon's weight too, because he came in, I think, a little bit heavier than what he was listed at on the team website when he got to Mobile. I can't remember quite what he weighed in at let's see, you had him at 226. That's okay. I think he was, flirting with the 230s there at one point. And so maybe is he the kind of guy that's always going to be fighting his weight? I think Gordon, in my mind, has kind of been off of my board, although they did bring him in for a pre-draft visit. So I guess I can't fully take him off, but I would disagree with that pick. In terms of the late round guys, my kind of default defensive lineman for the late round double dip would be a Yaya Black. But I do like Biggers. It's a solid enough pick. And, in the 7th round, if we haven't addressed safety by this point, then yeah, I suppose Mickens does make some sense. I don't have, a ton of other great kind of 7th round safeties to throw at you right now. If they do, I've kind of had, ever since Alex had, that Alabama CJ Dupre on his initial mock draft, I've kind of fallen in love with him after looking more into him. I did his report. He's from, I think, central Pennsylvania somewhere, grew up a Steelers fan, just like one of the strongest guys in the draft class, have more speed than I expected. He's, if he's like still there in the 7th round, I could see the Steelers adding to that tight end room. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I think overall this is a solid mock. Quinn Ewers, you'll get some flack, but I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought of putting him in that kind of same range myself in previous mock. So overall, good job.
Yeah, like you talked about, Ross, you get into that 4th, 5th round and you're looking at the quarterbacks, and really it came down to Ewers or McCord. And I tend to do my mocks like trying to predict what the Steelers are going to do, not what I would do. And when it comes to McCord and Ewers, it's like, who have they shown more interest in? And it's Ewers every time for me, but I do like McCord quite a bit. So yeah, it's tough. And Gordon, you were talking about the Senior Bowl. He measured in or weighed in at 233 at the Senior Bowl. So it was down 7 pounds for the combine. But yeah, the weight stuff, and I did forget about the DUI. So that was a good recall by you.
I think all 3 of us are team like to see the Steelers double dip at defensive line, but I do wonder how realistic that's ultimately going to be, especially if they only keep 6 picks. Something tells me they're going to have at least 7 picks in this draft, but it's hard to obviously predict that kind of thing. I wonder the realistic chance of them double dipping defensive line in this draft, even if they get 7 or 8 picks overall.
Yeah, I would like them to. I mean, that would be ideal. I think, like you said, though, with just the 6 picks right now, it is hard. And I think that's some of the pushback I'm getting in some of the comments is like, you're double dipping at a position with other needs. So, yeah, if Omar Khan moves down there, on day 2 or moves down day 3 and gets an extra 6th or 7th, I could see the double dip there. But yeah, it's tough. They need to do it, but with 6 picks, it makes it challenging.
All right, good job on that, Josh. It's hard. I know over the years how hard it is. I hate doing mock drafts. I've just learned to hate them
Yep.
over the years until I put my final one together. And even 2 seconds after I hit the button on that, I have second thoughts, buyer's remorse, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to that. All right, we do have the off season, if I can find them, practice dates that came out, workout dates that came out yesterday. We knew it was about time for that to happen. They were released. It looks like the first day back at the facility is April 21st, and then that is 1 week ahead of the draft, so that's coming up with phase one getting underway. The first organized team activity session is not until May 27th through the 29th. The second OTA session is June the 3rd to the 5th, and then the mandatory mini camp is June 10th through the 12th. We don't have the rookie mini camp dates yet, but usually I believe that's the second weekend after the draft. The most notable thing here is that we only have 6 days instead of 10. They're missing an OTA week here for whatever reason. Generally, they have that first one, I think, the week before the May 27th to the 29th. Will, what do you think the reasoning here is of only 6 planned OTAs as it stands right now?
I don't know if I don't really have a great theory. I think, especially, I mean, the NFL is right now attempting to, get an 18th game on the schedule. And um, I think a part of that kind of negotiation or trade off is going to be reorganizing the offseason and kind of pushing OTAs back and kind of lumping it in with an extended training camp. So I don't understand why the NFL would make OTAs smaller right now. It seems like a bad negotiation tool because it's, they're already kind of giving them part of what they want in terms of a little bit more time in the offseason. I don't have a great theory, only to say it's going to be less days for people to be mad at Aaron Rodgers for missing.
Josh, you got any thought? I don't have a clue why
No,
gone this way.
I don't either. I was racking my brain yesterday while trying to write that article of like, why would they not have a third OTA session? And I can't come up with anything. And I did kind of see the joke on Twitter, kind of playing off what Ross said about Aaron Rodgers, where now he can schedule his trip to Egypt and he won't have to worry about missing a third session. So I honestly I don't know, and it doesn't make much sense. You would think this team would want to have that third session, but they're not, and hopefully we get an explanation soon as to why.
All right, we got the rest of the pre-draft visitors in. We killed enough time here. Jackson Dart in. Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon
Nice.
in. Jalen Noel, we've known he was going to be coming in. That's finally happened. And Nick Manowore, the safety out of South
Whoa.
Carolina, potential first-round guy in the door. Thoughts on everybody except Jackson Dart?
Caldwell is not the Oregon defensive lineman I was hoping for, but he's a big body. That makes a lot of sense there as nose tackle. Eman Worry, is this team going to draft him in the first round if he's there? I
don't
mean,
know. Alex will never let me hear the end of it. If they draft a safety, I mean, he's hard to bypass if he's on the board at 21.
Yeah, and what, Gerald Alexander was there and put him through the pro day drills. So yeah, it's an interesting crop. Caldwell and Eman Worry were not names that I was banking on for pre-draft visits, but Eman Worry certainly has my attention here today.
We talked about Jalen Noel enough. Ross, your thoughts on today's list?
I love them bringing in Jamar Caldwell. He was one of my favorites at the Senior Bowl. He was 342 pounds in Mobile and was somehow still outquicking a lot of offensive linemen. And he told me at the Senior Bowl that his goal was to get down to 325. When I checked in with him a month later at the Combine, he was down to 333, I believe, or in that range. He was down like 9, 10, 11 pounds. I can't remember the exact number, but He still wants to lose, another, I guess, 8. I think he said 320 to 325 was his goal. And so if he can get down there, I can't imagine. I mean, his quickness was already great at 342. So this is a guy with a awesome story. He had to fight for, everything he has right now. He went through kind of the junior college system and then went to Houston and transferred to Oregon there for his last season. I think to me, this is I guess further proof that the Steelers might be looking at a double dip in my eyes. Just because I think he's kind of more of a later round guy.
What's he, fifth round guy?
Yeah, I could see 5th round, especially if he I don't know if he weighed in at his pro day. I didn't see that number. But I mean, with how good he was at the Senior Bowl, all it takes is one team to be enamored with that. I could see him 5th or maybe even sneaking into the 4th wouldn't be a shock, I guess, to me. But it is a deep defensive line group. But yeah, I'm very happy about them bringing in Caldwell. And man, Worry, I mean, he's an athletic freak. What can you say? I'm not super in favor of first round safety, but I guess they're at least considering it, or they wouldn't have brought him in.
All right, so where are we at now about total of pre-draft visitors?
I think 19.
I want to say 19.
Either coming in or has come in.
I think it's 19 with 3 locals, I think.
Okay, so we got hopefully we'll get access to the full list this year. Hopefully they're not hiding anybody. It seems like they've been consistent on days that you would expect guys to come in, of them reporting them, right?
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
All right. What else do we have to wrap up with here to talk about today, guys? That I said during our 1 hour and 20-minute pre-production podcast meeting.
I mean, the reported interest in trading for Joe Milton, it was something, I guess, kind of notable the last couple of days. What else was there?
At least they had some level of interest, according to Jordan Schultz, and Milton ended up being traded to Dallas. So if any of you listening were hoping for Joe Milton, that's not happening. What else do we have?
I'm trying to think here. And yeah, to me, that Milton thing was just, I mean, Khan said nothing's off the table, and I think they truly meant that. If you look at all the quarterbacks that are even remotely possibly available this offseason, it seems like they've been linked to them in some way, form, or fashion. So not a huge surprise there to me. What was he going to be? I think some people assume like, oh, you bring in Milton and, roll the dice on him. Like, I think some of the talking heads in the media were even talking about like, why not let him start? And that's ridiculous to me. He would have been, a third guy behind Rudolph, if anything. So, but yeah, I don't know. What do we have anything else there?
Let's see. Hard Knocks has changed the rules. There's no way they'd pick the Steelers to be in this, right?
I certainly hope not. I mean, even with Tomlin taking that star turn and getting a fun look behind the scenes, I think it would be extremely unfair to force them to be the training camp version immediately after doing in season. I just think that would be really unfair to do for a team that, especially at the standing in the league that the Steelers have.
All right. Alternate jerseys is another talk. Seems like teams might be able to wear a couple of more. Ross, what's the report on that?
Yeah, they're allowing up to 4. And, I wrote a piece yesterday. I want to see the Bumblebees come back. I think they haven't worn them since 2016 was the last time. And back then, Rooney said this will be the last time we wear these. I sure hope he didn't mean forever, because they are one of my favorites. This is a big dividing point in the fan base. People have strong opinions on either side. I strongly believe, they were one of my favorites. But I know the yellow helmet, black jersey kind of throwback is a popular one. What are some other ones that people want?
I'd like to see the Batman jerseys from the 60s. From what was it, 67, 68, something like that.
I think so.
I know it ruffles feathers. I'd like those all whites that they wore that one season or whatnot a couple of times there, but I don't think that will be in the consideration there. Ross, you didn't have to watch the all 22, or at least I don't. Do we even have access to? I think we had some access to all 22 when they wore the bumblebees. I can't remember, but trying to pick the damn numbers out on those things was for that reason alone. I didn't care for them there, but we'll have to wait and see if obviously they're probably going to have the 70s throwbacks. They'll have the color rush, I'm sure. Be interesting to see if they go another route with some of the alternates there. So I know that's caused a little bit discussion, but nothing definitive on any of that right now. All right, I think we got most of this out of the way, unless you guys got anything else here.
No, just pour one out for Patrick Peterson. Hasn't officially retired, but what did he say yesterday? Doesn't envision himself playing. I just, why not just retire, man?
Kind of fell out of love with working out or something.
Yeah, just file the paperwork. I mean, honestly. But yeah, the Bumblebee jersey is a divide in the fan base, and it is a divide with Ross and I. I am anti Bumblebee jersey.
All right, let's see. We're not going to get we'll save some of the reader emails for Alex and myself to get to on Monday. Guys, I appreciate you sitting in today for Alex. We got, I think, a good hour, 30 minutes out of this show, which is about par for the course for us. And as always, you can follow both these guys on Twitter, the Depot Dive podcast. Hopefully you're listening to that with Ross McCorkle and Joe Clark. That drops. What day does that drop? Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. And I was informed by Joe during the taping of this episode that today was actually 1 year ago. Today was the first episode. So we just reached the 1 year.
All right. We're also coming up on the anniversary of Steelers Depot as well, too. I think that's on the 8th or something. So we'll be celebrating that next week as well, too, here. All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. You can follow Josh Carney where?
At by Josh Carney on Twitter.
And you can follow Ross McCorkle on Twitter where?
At Ross_McCorkle.
All right. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. And once again, if you want to email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. So once again, appreciate Josh Carney and Ross McCorkle sitting in today for the great Alex Kozora, who should be back with me on the Monday show. And until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex, and today, Josh Carney and Ross McCorkle.